do you accept that your idea of the right thing may not always be the right thing?
Well, if it's the right thing for me, I guess it is the right thing. Well, no, I'm not omnipotent or omniscient.
Right. I'm just wondering how...
I haven't yet read all the books. I haven't studied all the wise men throughout history. But none of us have. So we have to take a view, given the piece of history that we're living in.
But you accept you could be wrong about things?
This is what you do. What's this little trap you're trying to set?
There's no trap at all.
All right. Well,
I'm wondering how certain you are, because look, you're a controversial guy, so am I.
Okay.
And I followed everything that you've done. I think some of it has been massively overblown. I think some of it there's legitimate criticism to be made. But the overarching theme is you're very opinionated. You speak your mind. I'm only curious whether you have a certainty that you're right, or that you allow for the possibility that however well-read you've been about any particular issue, you could occasionally be wrong.
Of course I allow for that possibility. Absolutely. But the foundation of my opinions, for instance, is based on solid things. So the platform upon which I stand by and large is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from the fledgling United Nations on the 10th of December in Paris in 1948. Now, I've read that document, obviously, the 30 articles of it. I've taken them to heart. And it is my belief that we, the people of the world, should observe those basic rights for all our brothers and sisters all over the world, irrespective of their ethnicity or religion.
Well, let me start with an unequivocal agreement. I agree.
Our work here is done. That's it. That's the end of the conversation. There's no point in continuing.
We are going to continue, but actually on that point, it's an important point to reach unanimity over, right? I mean, I agree with you.
I've watched your programme a lot, and I confess, Piers, that you don't always seem to be of the same opinion as me about the 30 articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
I've always said that I believe... Look, we're going to come to Israel-Palestine in a moment. I've always said that I believe every Palestinian should be entitled to exactly the same human rights as every Israeli, for example. I've been unwavering on that. Now, we'll come to the war and what's happened and the history and everything in a moment. But first, I wanted to start with Eric Clapton, who recently gave an interview in which he said about you, I love Roger, I love him, we are brothers, and he goes his way about it, and it takes a lot of guts, and he suffers from it terribly. I've seen him sit on the window ledge in tears and say, it's morning here in Manhattan, and I'm in tears again, you know? He used the phrase a lot of guts. Do you think it's courageous, the stances you take?
I've no idea. That's not for me to say. But I will say this. When I take my stand for human rights, I'm not mucking around. I'm serious about it. And I don't care what they throw at me. And we know who I'm talking about, and they are very powerful.
Well, who are you talking about?
The Israeli lobby, obviously. Actually, it's not just the Israeli lobby, it's the war machine as well. It's the war lobby. Have I paid a price? Yeah, a bit of one, but I've been lucky. You know, I've been very successful in my chosen career. And so I've never wanted for a few quid. I don't invest. I'm not a capitalist.
How much are you worth?
That's none of your business.
It's been reported as over 300 million.
It's none of your business, Piers. Are you deaf? I can see you can read, but you're obviously a little bit deaf. It's none of your business,
just curious.
Sunshine.
It's been reported.
Okay.
You admit you're a very wealthy guy.
I'm not going to talk about my personal wealth. It's none of your business, and it doesn't matter. What does matter is that I have stood up for human rights all my life. Ever since the day that I marched, for the first time in 1960 or whenever it was, from Aldermaston to Trafalgar Square, and listened to Bertrand Russell and Canon Collins and Father Trevor Huddleston standing there in Trafalgar Square and explaining to us that the independent nuclear deterrent was a terrible mistake, which it was and which it still is, and which is something that I also say. At the end of every single gig that I do a song called Two Suns in the Sunset, which is a warning about how we might wake up one morning and the Third World War started.
Well, we might, but we might also, if you were Ukrainian, think that actually having a nuclear deterrent might stop Russian dictators invading you.
Well,
we'll come to that.
Well,
we'll come to that.
All right, okay. All right, I hope...
In other words, there are two ways of looking at all these things, and we're going to explore them, right?
There's no two ways of looking at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You either believe in it or you don't, and you cannot cherry-pick it. And what you said earlier
well, I wasn't talking about
excuse me, don't interrupt. What you said earlier was that Palestinians, all Palestinians, should have exactly the same human, religious, civil, legal rights as all Israeli Jews. I agree with that. And when that is one unified democratic state that they live in together with equal human rights for all the citizens of that country, from the River Jordan to the sea, that will be a starting point from which they can all move on. And I hope they do. But it's not for me to say what happened. It's for me to say what I feel about that. Oh my God, I want to be there standing in that square when that state is declared there. I want to be there on that day to embrace all my brothers and sisters, whether they're Muslim, Druze, agnostic, Christian or Jewish, and whether their nationality was Palestinian or Lebanese or whatever, or Israeli. I want to see them free of the burden of this constant war. So,
but you talk about a state there, not a two-state.
The two-state solution, everybody, with an IQ above room temperature agrees is a non-starter because of Eretz Israel and what's happened and all the building in the West Bank and what's happening in Gaza now, of course, as well.
Well, let me play you a clip. This is from a month ago. This was on your YouTube
It's not
channel.
George Galloway, is it?
No, it's from your own YouTube channel.
Okay.
It's called Resist the Genocide, and you said this.
When this is all over, Israel is going to have to apologize, not just to the Palestinians, but to the whole of the rest of the world. Say we're very sorry, we got it all completely wrong, and we are now leaving. Okay? We'll go back to Eastern Europe or the United States or wherever we came from, and leave these people, the Palestinian people whose land this is, to, if they can, rebuild and live in peace.
Well, hang on, you didn't play the rest of it.
Okay.
Where it said, of course, any of you want to stay will be welcome to stay as citizens of this new state.
But the state, to be clear, would be Palestine.
Well, my personal opinion is that would be what it should be called. It was called Palestine up to 1948, and it could. But hang on a minute, that's an open discussion.
Well, I haven't asked a question yet.
Excuse me, stop interrupting me. I heard somebody suggest the other day it could be called the Holy Land. I actually made that suggestion some time ago, and I've been persuaded away from that idea by conversations I've had with other people. No, it's Palestine. Let's call it Palestine. But that's not my business. That's for all the people who live there to decide.
Yeah, but you say it's not your business, Roger, but with respect, when you say that all the Israelis should just 7 million of them,
well, hang on,
should just get up and go.
All right, let me have my say. You've just shown that out of context without showing the second half of it. Fine. Or what? I look miserable. I'm in Barbados. I'm talking to my phone. When you said that Eric said that he sees me waking up in tears, I do. I am prepared to admit that I am in tears over Gaza every morning when I wake up, because I'm only 80 years old. I have never experienced the genocide of a whole people in front of my eyes happening every day. The calumny.
Well, you have. Well, with respect, you have. You were born in World War II when there was an actual genocide of Jewish people by the Nazis.
I was that big.
What?
I was that big. I didn't witness
you were alive,
that.
is my point.
Well, but I wasn't talking about being alive. I'm saying I never witnessed it. You can't witness something.
Yeah, but 6 million Jews were killed by the Nazis.
You cannot witness something. Well, I'm not saying they weren't.
Right.
And was that a disgusting, awful crime? Yeah, it was. Just like this one is a disgusting, awful crime.
But my question for
There's
you...
no difference.
But Roger, my question for you is this.
Yeah.
When you say that you need to have the whole world saying, we're very sorry, we got it wrong, we're now leaving, go back to Eastern Europe or the United States or wherever you came from.
Yes.
Do you understand how Israelis feel when they hear that?
Well, it depends which Israelis they are. And frankly, the fact is that something has to be... Or would you suggest, no, let's just let them kill all the Palestinians? Why don't we just let them
I believe
kill
there should
them?
be a two-state solution.
Well, that's not going to happen, but I don't want to argue with you about
But nor is your plan. You're not going to have 7 million Israelis being sent back to Europe or the United States.
But you know what? Let me speak on behalf of we, the people of the world, because we, the people of the world, whatever the...
But you don't speak for the whole world, do you?
For God's sake.
Well, come on, Roger. We have a civilised conversation.
No, you can't have a civilised conversation with somebody who constantly interrupts.
Okay. Nor can you speak unfettered without me correcting some of the things you're saying or challenging you. You accept that?
Yeah, I hadn't. I was about to say something,
Okay.
and you're doing it again.
My apologies.
I accept your apology.
Thank you.
Please don't do it again, Piers. Right. Most of the people of the world do not want the Israelis to continue in their inexorable course to the end of their extermination of the indigenous people of Palestine. That's all I'm saying. So something has to happen that is not that. So if you say there are two possible alternatives, a two-state solution, and that's been on the table, let us not forget, certainly since the end of the 1967 war. And let's not go back into the old stuff about, oh, well, the Palestinians turned it down. No, they don't. That is a barefaced lie.
Well, Arafat did.
No, he didn't. That is a barefaced lie. I'm not going to argue the toss with you. I know it is. If you don't know it is, you haven't yet done the reading.
Oh, I have. And I've actually interviewed people like Bill Clinton who were involved in it.
Bill Clinton. Dear God. Anyway, I won't go.
You would believe Arafat over Clinton?
Of course.
Really?
Yeah. Arafat's dead, sadly. But you see, this is what I shouldn't get sucked into. Because the you're wrong, I'm right nature of this program is what's wrong with it. I know you think
but that
it's
isn't
what's
the nature
right
of the
with
program.
it.
It's you say something and I challenge you, and maybe you change my mind, which by the way, you might do.
It's the you're wrong, I'm right, confrontational. It's the confrontation, which is what you get. It's your clicks.
Well, why are you here?
Confrontation.
Out of interest.
I'll tell you why I'm here. Because we're having a general election in England at the moment. And I've come over here to help 4 or 5 people who are standing as independents in different constituencies in the United Kingdom. Because they, like me, believe in human rights. Keir Starmer doesn't and Rishi Sunak don't. They've shown it. And one of the ways they've shown it is in their support for the state of Israel and to continue to arm Israel, its genocide of the Palestinian people. Now, those people include Andrew Feinstein. Andrew Feinstein is standing as an independent in the constituency of Holborn and St Pancras against Keir Starmer, who is the possible incumbent Prime Minister of this country. So if we... Andrew Feinstein and his team mainly, but if I can help him, I will, get a majority of the people to vote for him, to Feinstein, instead of Starmer, to forget the general politics of the United Kingdom for a moment and to accept that the most important thing that we're all fighting for at the moment is around Gaza and around the extermination of the people of Palestine, because what we're fighting for is the soul of the human race. We're fighting to try and achieve a future where we understand that things like right and wrong exist, and we have to stand up for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. No, not yet. Andrew Feinstein will, and Keir Starmer won't. We know Keir Starmer's a bought man. I wouldn't believe him, if... Well, we know Keir Starmer. We've known...
Well, George Galloway last week told me he would trust Vladimir Putin over Keir Starmer. Would you?
Did he? Well, obviously, you only have to listen to what the two men say.
You would believe Putin over Starmer?
Why not? But why would they?
So I understand that, that you and many people share your view that they believe that Israel is perpetrating a genocide on Gaza. And you talk about wanting to eliminate the people of Gaza. But surely that clip that I played, when you talk about the Israelis having to go back to where they come from.
If they could apologise for what they do. Obviously,
no, Roger, let me ask a question.
Okay.
On that point of wherever you come from, back to Eastern Europe, wherever you come from, to tell 7 million people to go back where they come from, many people would view that as racist, and in the case of Israelis, to be anti-Semitic, something you've been accused of being. Now, do you understand why they would take it that way?
Absolutely, of course I do. We have to remember that most of the population of Israel are young, much younger than me, even younger than you, if such a thing was possible. And they have been pretty well brainwashed into believing that they are superior to the other people who live there. And I have to say, the thing about Eastern Europe or Northeastern Europe and the United States, they've tried to sell us this idea that somehow they are biblical people and that God has given them the land. That's what the Christian evangelicals believe.
Well, look,
all I'm saying is that they're not indigenous people, most of them. There are a few of the Jewish people who are citizens of Israel who are indigenous to the area. But back in the 19th century, that was only 7 or 8% of the population.
Can I respond?
Yes, of course.
So ancient Egyptian records mention Israel from 1213 BC. Religious literature records Israelites as far back as 1500 BC. As far as many Jewish people are concerned, this is where they come from. Right. Within Judaism, Israel is the Holy Land. It's the land where the faith began. Jerusalem is the holy city. For Jews, Jerusalem is at the core of their faith and their world. Now, I believe you're an atheist. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So you may not understand or accept that, but that is how millions of people in Israel feel. They believe this is their original holy land. Now, I think that the displacement of the Palestinians back in 1948 was appalling. I also think the simultaneous virtue displacement of many Jewish people from their homes was also appalling. All of it was appalling. And you can create a narrative that would be supportive of both sides and critical of the other sides. But there's no doubting that Jewish people believe this is their holy land too, in the way that many Palestinians do.
I haven't read that book, I admit. And I'm not sure I want to, because I've only got a few years. Well, how many years I've got left is irrelevant.
You're doing better than the President of the United States, aren't you?
I beg your pardon?
You're doing a lot better than the President of the United States.
Yes, I am.
Your mental acuity appears to be much sharper.
Anyway, let me finish. All of what you're saying, though, may well be fascinating to historians and Jewish scholars and scholars of other religions, but it's completely irrelevant to the genocide that is going on now in the West Bank and Gaza.
But it's not irrelevant to why Jewish people, when you say...
it's not irrelevant to why they think they have a right to commit genocide.
No, I didn't say that.
What is all this stuff from Egypt?
No, I'm just going to say that, again, referring to the quote from your own mouth, when you say to 7 million people, go back to Eastern Europe, the United States, or wherever you came from, many will believe, if not most of people in Israel will believe, that this is where they originally came from.
What I say in that little video is, I think you made a terrible mistake, and I think you should now say, we're sorry, it was a terrible mistake. Just look at what's happened. This is obviously a completely failed experiment. Zionism, the whole thing is a failed experiment, and we're going to leave you to live your lives in your country. Maybe a few of us will stay, or maybe we'll all stay, but we all have to live together with equal rights from the river.
But this new state, to be clear, would be...
Hang on. Let me finish. That's all. I.e., I'm going to keep dragging this conversation back to these two things. Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the genocide that the state of Israel is committing on the Palestinian people. And I don't care about what your history books from Egypt. I'm not saying you're wrong. I haven't read them. And frankly, I couldn't care less.
But I thought you did care about reading and getting more knowledgeable.
See, there you go. You're so clever.
Well, I just remembered what you said. It's not that clever. It just says I've got a good memory.
Do you know what? No, you're right. It wasn't that clever.
Okay. Look, let's go back to...
No, let's stay on the genocide. It's either right, it's either all right or it's not. And it doesn't matter what happened in the history of the Israelites.
I'm coming to this.
Okay.
Let's go back to October the 7th, 2023, when the Hamas attacks occurred. George Galloway was here last week, and he described them as terror attacks. Do you agree with that?
I'm not going to have this conversation. I've seen you have it with everybody, and you're. It's a waste of time.
Why?
Because you always reach the same conclusions, and you always waste 10 or 12 minutes.
Let's waste 1 minute. All I ever ask people is, do you condemn what Hamas did?
I condemn the killing of civilians, always, whoever does it, wherever it is. I condemn war crimes. If Hamas committed war crimes on October the 7th, I condemn it. You referred earlier... You referred earlier to my conversation with Glenn Greenwald, which happened in December last year. And I was taken to task after that because on his programme, and this was only a few weeks after October the 7th, I said, I would love to know what happened on October the 7th, so that we can all have a proper... Well, the Israelis won't allow any investigation.
You suggested it might be a false flag operation.
Well,
implying that Israel created
it. Hang on. Maybe false flag's not exactly the right word, but why did
it's obviously not
hang
the right
on.
word.
Can I finish?
Yeah, but you're wrong.
All right, never mind.
Roger. It obviously wasn't a false flag. And the reason we know that is that Hamas broadcast in real time through video to social media what they were doing. There's nothing false flag about it.
I'm not saying that part of the Palestinian resistance movement didn't cross that wire fence into what's called...
2,000 of them
Hang on. Or 2,000, however many. It doesn't really matter how many it was. I'm not saying they didn't do that. I'm not saying that didn't happen at all. What I'm saying is, there's all this talk about, does Israel have a right to defend itself? Why didn't Israel defend itself that morning? Why did they wait 7 hours before they started machine gunning everyone?
It was a catastrophic failure of defence and security.
And this is the most efficient security
it was catastrophic. That's why when this is over...
All right, you don't want to have that conversation, neither do I, but wouldn't it be
I just
great...
answered you what I think
Hang
happened.
on, wouldn't it be great to have that conversation at some... And wouldn't it be great if we could have an actual real investigation beyond the very good Al Jazeera documentary that we all saw that came out, and all the great work that the Grey Zone and Electronic Intifada people did in debunking all the filthy, disgusting lies that the Israelis told after October the 7th.
Like what?
About burning babies and women being raped, which were all completely...
Actually, women were raped.
No, they weren't.
Yes, they were.
Well, there's no evidence.
It's been established by the United Nations.
You can say anything that you want, but there's no evidence.
But actually, there is extensive evidence.
There is no evidence.
Sexual assault and rape. Well, there is.
Okay, well, all right, now...
Also, we know what Hamas broadcast on social media.
Calm down. Roger, calm down. Don't sink to his level. All right, I won't.
What level?
Well, stop shouting. Stop shouting back. Let him interrupt you as much as you want. Okay. All right. Sorry, Piers, what were you saying?
Look, let's not prolong the discussion about whether you believe what happened on October the 7th, other than me just to simply ask you...
Wouldn't it be nice to be able to look at all the evidence and come to a grown-up conclusion rather than just saying this happened or that happened or this didn't?
Well, it's now been established that 1,200 people were killed, of whom 400 were military, which means 800 innocent people were killed. Over 250 were then kidnapped, including Holocaust survivors who were grandparents and babies. Do you accept that happened?
Well, the people were kidnapped?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you accept that Holocaust survivors and babies were kidnapped?
I don't know about that.
I
did. I saw one released. In the first set of release, there was somebody who was a Holocaust
Why are you not
survivor.
curious to read about that, though?
Well, I did. I did read about it.
I mean, a big thing of reading.
There were a number of old people and young people who were released, I don't know, sometime in November.
The baby's never been released.
I beg your pardon?
The baby was never released. The baby was kidnapped and never been released.
Well, Piers, you may or may not just be making it up. I know...
Making it up?
Piers, I know you believe nonsense that you're told by Zaka and other people who made up tons of lies about October.
Who's Zaka? Sorry.
Oh, don't be silly.
Who is that? Who are you talking about?
You are kidding now.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Zaka, it was an organisation collecting bodies, paramedics.
I've never heard of it.
Well, you have no right to be having this conversation at all. What you have to do now, Piers, is go and look through all the documentation that there is and all the video evidence that there is of those paramedic people lying about burned babies and rape and babies in ovens and all the atrocity stories that came out immediately after, excuse me, I haven't finished, immediately after October the 7th, that gave impetus to the idea somehow that to commit genocide on the people of Gaza would be a reasonable defense against all those atrocities, which is the story that you, among others, have tried to sell to your audience.
No, I haven't.
I'll
just try to get to the
I'm
facts.
sorry. I apologise for accusing you.
Do you believe?
Well, hang on. You need to look up Zaka. Look it up.
I'll look it up.
And then maybe we could have another conversation, because until you know that story, you know...
You seem to have done extremely little reading about anything that happened to Israelis that day.
That's nonsense. I've had long conversations, not least with my friend Gideon Levy, who's a journalist in Israel who writes...
But do you actually believe Israel had anything to do with what happened that day?
Israel?
You suggested it was a false flag. That would imply the Israeli government had something to do with it.
No, I've no idea. Why didn't they respond, though? They've tended always...
But do you believe, is it logical that they would perpetrate that attack on their own people?
I've no idea.
No idea.
Excuse me, they definitely attacked their own people. That is absolutely cast iron. All those piles of cars, they were destroyed by Apache missiles from helicopters. Hamas didn't have helicopters.
Do you think Hamas killed anybody that day?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, and they probably killed civilians as well.
Were they acts of terrorism?
To kill a civilian is a war crime.
Act of terror?
Well, to use the word terrorism is really dangerous and difficult, because you have to remember that people fighting on behalf of Palestine liberation have a legal and moral, what's the word I'm trying to search for? Not just a right. They
right to defend themselves?
No, they have a right to fight back against the oppressor.
But they don't have a right to commit war crimes.
If somebody invades your country, kicks all your people out of their homes, steals everything and is stealing all your land and occupies all your land for 75 years, you have an absolute right to armed resistance
but not
against
to commit war crimes.
That invader.
But not to commit war crimes.
No. Not to commit war crimes, to armed resistance.
Do you believe Hamas committed war crimes on October the 7th?
Probably.
Probably?
Yeah, probably.
And you've seen what they actually
broadcast
broadcast
the Israelis won't allow anybody to investigate it. And
Hamas,
it's Israel. And
Hamas literally broadcast it from their own GoPros onto social media. They were live streaming the attacks on Jewish people.
We're wasting time. I'm not saying that some people from Hamas didn't fire their guns at people who were not armed. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did.
Okay.
And I condemn it. I condemn that act, okay?
Okay.
But it cannot be seen, that October the 7th cannot be seen on its own. This is after 75 years.
I agree. I didn't, for a moment, suggest it was. What I was curious about was that you tweeted at 4 o'clock that day, October the 7th, but not about the attacks. You were promoting your new album. On October the 8th, again, promotion of your new album, nothing about the attacks. It was only on October the 14th, a week later, that you released a video about it. Why did it take you so long to respond to what was one of the worst terrorist attacks of modern times?
My guess is, though, if you ask me to remember what happened on every day of all those intervening days, I think I was trying to find out what had actually happened, because it was very, very confused. And the stories that were coming out were mind-bogglingly confusing in every way. And that's what I said to Glenn Greenwald when I did my interview with him. I said, I'd really like to know what happened. And I still would.
Okay.
And I think if I could wave a magic wand, I would have an international UN-supported investigation into all the events of October
well, the UN
and after.
The UN has investigated it. And they have established there was sexual assault and rape.
No, they haven't.
Well, they
I've
have.
read those reports.
Well, you need to read more,
That is not
Roger.
what they say.
That is what they said. 364 civilians were killed. Many, many, many were wounded by Hamas at the Supernova Sukkot gathering, the open-air music festival. And after that...
The music in that little film that you saw of me suggesting that the Israelis should say, we're very, very, very sorry that we did this horrific thing that we've been doing, and we'll go away now, and hopefully you can live in peace in this land. Maybe some of us... The music in the back of it is music to a song I wrote around the time that you're talking about called Under the Rubble. It's a very short song. There's very little to it. It just says, Papa, Papa, I want to go home. Papa, please take me home. That's a verse. And the second verse is, Mama, Mama, Daddy stopped breathing. Mama.
Who are you
Mama.
talking about, though?
I'm talking about children dying under the rubble, murdered by the state
What about
of
the
Israel.
children who were killed at the music festival?
Oh my God, there were definitely music festivals goers killed. I feel for them.
Well, 364 were killed.
Hang on a minute. There's 100,000. There's 40,000 under the rubble at least.
I'm just asking you because you...
It's a false equivalent.
I'm not equivalating anything.
You are. You're
Here's
trying
why-
to suggest.
No, here's why I've mentioned it. Is that Bono from U2 introduced his song Pride in the Name of Love at the Sphere in Vegas.
I know.
And he said, in light of what's happened in Israel and
The
Gaza...
Stars of David.
Wait a minute. In the light of what's happened in Israel and Gaza, a song about non-violence seems somewhat ridiculous, even laughable. But our prayers have always been for peace and for non-violence. But our hearts and our anger, you know where that's pointed. So sing with us and those beautiful kids at that music festival. He later referred to those killed by Hamas that day at the festival as Stars of David. Now, you responded on Al Jazeera by saying anyone who knows Bono should go and pick him up by his ankles and shake him until he stops being an enormous shit. We have to start saying to these people, your opinion is so disgusting and so degrading, sticking up for the Zionist entity.
Yes.
What he did a couple of weeks ago in the Sphere in Vegas, singing about the Stars of David, was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
How do you justify that?
I'm not
All he
gonna-
was doing was paying a tribute to young music lovers at a music festival who happened to be Jewish. And the Star of David is the emblem of a Jewish person.
You're on your own.
I'm not on my own.
Yes, you are.
Why? I don't understand why you'd be so hateful to Bono.
Nice try, Piers.
Why were you so hateful?
It's none of your business.
You said it publicly on TV.
All right. So I
It's hardly
said it.
private, is it?
I was a bit upset. I'm watching a genocide. I wake up in tears every morning.
Yeah, but people
Don't
might
you
be-
understand? Don't you get it?
Yes,
Okay, well,
I
you-
understand
well-
the strength of your feeling. I don't understand why you seem to have very little feeling for the people who've died on the other side.
Because there's a few hundred of
Especially
them.
music lovers.
Because
at a
they,
festival. You're a
excuse
musician.
me, because the state of Israel is, how to get it into your thick head? They're committing genocide.
Yes.
They're killing every single Palestinian. They're going to kill every Palestinian
Well, they're
in
not
the
gonna
West
kill
Bank.
every
Their
Palestinian.
dream, and their leaders have said that, is Eretz Israel. Every single bit of was once Palestine
They're not going to
becomes
kill every
Israel.
Palestinian, obviously.
Why? Oh, they're not?
No, they're not.
Well, they're trying to. Why
Well,
don't
they're trying
they
to kill
stop?
every member of Hamas.
Well, what?
I personally believe, as I know you do, that I think they have the response has been massively disproportionate. And way too many Palestinian civilians have died. And because the population is half under 18, it is absolutely outrageous now that so many young people have been killed. But that doesn't change the fact that
They said-
364 Israeli civilians
They said-
and other nationalities were killed that day at a music
where's my
festival.
camera?
And when
It says-
Bono sings a song about them and pays a tribute to them, you attack him.
They said to me, don't raise your voice. You know what he's like. And I said, yeah, I do.
What am I like?
See, he's like that. All right. This is a complete false equivalence.
I'm not making a false equivalent.
He's interrupting again.
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to the camera. The oppressor, the state of Israel, is committing genocide on a whole people. Okay? Some of the people in the prison where the genocide is being committed resisted the genocide on October the 7th. And some people in Israel were killed. And I feel for them and their families. But let's not forget where all this started. It started in May. I believe it was May. May even have been the 15th of May, 1948, at the Nakba. It's one set of people trying to steal a whole land from another set of people. I remember having a conversation with Dionne Warwick about this. I said, Dionne, I know how old you are. You're 5 years younger than me. In 3 years younger than me. In 1948...
All right, Roger, let's get back to...
No, I'm talking to the audience. In 1948, Dionne Warwick was 8 years old. She was living in Chicago. Dionne, there's a bang on the door, right? You go to the door. There's a bloke there with a gun. He says, out, go and walk to Canada. But we live here. No, we're taking this house and this land and all your stuff. And your father comes running downstairs. He says, what are you doing with my daughter? Bang! He's dead. He's lying on the... You leave, you and your mum, and you start walking towards Canada. How would you feel? This was in a conversation that I didn't have, but in a letter I wrote to Dionne Warwick after she had attacked me for being part of the BDS movement, where I tried to help the whole of Palestinian civil society to persuade musicians not to go... Excuse me, I haven't finished.
Can we get back to an interview?
I haven't finished.
It's
not to go and play
to the
music.
world. This is an interview. Come on. And by the way, I agree with you about the Nakba. It was wrong. It shouldn't have happened, right? I've already said that. We agree. You've been accused of anti-Semitism by a lot of people.
Yeah.
But in February 2023, Polly Sampson, the former lyricist for Pink Floyd and the wife of Dave Gilmore from Pink Floyd, tweeted this. Sadly, Roger Waters, you are anti-Semitic to your rotten core, also a Putin apologist and a lying, thieving, hypocritical, tax-avoiding, lip-syncing, misogynistic, sick with envy, megalomaniac. Enough of your nonsense. A few hours later, David Gilmore retweeted this and commented every word demonstrably true.
No comment.
You have no comment to that?
Oh, shut up, please.
Really? No comment?
It's private.
It's not private, it's public on Twitter.
I'm sorry. Well,
Alex, no.
She's public. I'm private, all right? I'm private about that.
But these are people you've worked with in one of the biggest bands in the world.
Oh, I've gone. There I am. No. Come on.
Didn't bother you?
I'm not saying it didn't bother me. I'm saying I'm not making a comment about that on your TV program.
Why not?
Because I don't want to.
But why?
It's none of your business.
No?
I'm not sharing that with you. I was talking to you about Dionne Warwick. I was in the middle of a story.
You weren't talking to me at all.
I know, because you're trying to get a rise out of me.
I'm really not trying to get a rise out of you.
Why are you bringing up that?
Because it was a public statement from people who are part of the band that you and they made hugely famous.
I'm used to people making derogatory comments about me from time to time. I'm a big boy. I can handle it, okay? Am I going to discuss it with you? No, I'm not.
Okay, but
why don't you move on?
For the record, are you anti-Semitic to your rotten core?
I'm not anti-Semitic, even very faintly, at any part of my body, let alone my core. I absolutely promise you that. Do you know who would know if Roger Waters was an anti-Semite? Roger Waters would know, because I would have feelings about Jews.
What are your feelings about Jews?
Well, I don't have any. I don't have feelings about negative feelings. I very rarely even think about whether somebody is of the Jewish faith or not. And I've known, obviously, thousands of people who are Jewish all my life, and it never crosses my mind ever to think, ooh, they're Jewish, I don't like Jews. It just doesn't ever cross my mind. I am not even faintly in any way anti. Now he's going to go, well, why do you wear a Nazi uniform then?
Why do you? Tell me.
You nearly drew the F-bomb out of me then, but you failed. Don't be silly. Go and watch The Wall. Go and listen to my album, The Wall. And then you'll know, because it's perfectly obvious. It's part of a narrative. It's a satirical part of a narrative about a rock star who becomes slightly unhinged and thinks that he's become a fascist demagogue, and he acts it out, and then he realizes that it's not the path for him, and he has a breakdown and tries. Just bloody well watch it once.
Actually, had you let me respond, I would have said to you, I believe you were misrepresented. in that furore.
Well, cheers. I appreciate it.
I knew it was part of a character. I knew you'd done it for a long, long time in different ways. So I do think that you were shot down perhaps unfairly there.
I wasn't shot down, by the way. I'm still...
But you were attacked and you were cancelled in various places and so on.
I was attacked, yeah. But, you know, that's coming home to roost now because the anti-Semite accusation that worked so well 5 years ago doesn't work so well now. People are beginning to realise, particularly now in general election year in this country, that the ousting of Jeremy Corbyn from the leadership of the Labour Party, organised to some extent by...
I think the problem you have, Roger, is this. The problem is that when you say to Jewish people in Israel, 7 million of them, they've got to go back to Eastern Europe or the United States,
got to. I said
wherever you came from.
Excuse me, I think...
That is anti-Semitic.
No, it's not.
Well, it is.
The Israelis...
Wherever you came from.
The Israelis should
go back where you came from.
In the aftermath of all of this, hopefully there will be truth and reconciliation sessions between the oppressors and the oppressed, between the torturers and the tortured. The oppressors and the torturers are the state of Israel. The oppressed and the tortured are the people of Palestine. Hopefully, like there was after the demise of the apartheid state of South Africa, truth and reconciliation. That was one of the great things that Nelson Mandela brought in with the ANC after they took power. Hopefully that will happen. That you showed that is me being very, very sad, and it is a hope. And I'll say it again now, I really hope you come to your senses. I really hope that you realise that what you have done since 1948 has been a huge mistake. I really hope that you get to understand that what you're doing now, the genocide you're committing in Gaza, is a huge mistake. And I hope you will find it in your hearts to be sorry, and eventually even for some of you to say you are sorry.
Come back to the interview, Roger. Do you believe the same thing about Vladimir Putin then, given what he's been waging in Ukraine?
What do you mean? No, of course not.
Well, he illegally invaded a sovereign democratic European country.
Yeah, and
he's killed many thousands of innocent Ukrainians in the process.
Well, hold on a minute. I actually spoke to the Security Council upon this matter a few years ago when it happened in 2022. And it should never have gone on. The Russians sued for peace in April 2022. That's all just beginning to come out now. But our Western leaders refused to allow Zelensky to make peace with them.
You said in 2022 that talk of an attack, this was a week before the invasion, you told Russia Today the talk of an attack was bullshit.
I thought it was. I was
wrong. Western
wrong.
propaganda to demonize Russia.
I thought that, and I was.
And you couldn't have been more wrong, could you?
No, I couldn't have been more wrong about that. Putin did invade Ukraine.
But could it be that Putin can't really be trusted in the way that you thought?
Putin sort of did what he said he was going to do, actually.
Why didn't you think he was
Putin
going to
had
do
been
that?
talking about a new system for European security since the Munich conference in 2007, where he made a long speech saying, we need to talk about the Ukraine and about the Baltic
Is he
states.
waging genocide in Ukraine?
Of course not.
Really?
No, of course
Why?
not.
He wants to take vast swathes of it
hang on
and
a
take
minute.
those people back to be Russian.
Let's not have this conversation. We know there was an
About the
illegal.
Ukraine
There was
war.
there was an illegal. The Maidan coup. Do you agree that that was illegal and that it was a U.S. paid for and inspired?
It certainly looked corrupt. Yeah.
All right. Well, can we not have that conversation? What he has always called the special military operation, I believe to have been an illegal invasion of Ukraine under Article 51 of
So
the
a war
UN.
crime.
Excuse me. As I said,
I'm just trying to get you to clarify what you think.
As I said,
So a war crime.
maybe, I don't know. You need to ask the lawyer.
It's an illegal invasion.
Ask the ICJ.
Well, no, hang on, Roger.
Don't
Look,
ask me.
if it's an illegal invasion, with respect to you, it is a war crime.
If it is, I'll believe you.
You just called it an illegal invasion.
If you say it is, it
No,
is.
you said it was.
I'm not. I don't want to have the conversation. Have the
You
conversation.
literally just said it was an illegal invasion of Ukraine.
Piers.
So I said, so it's a war crime. And you said, I don't know.
What's
an illegal invasion then?
And I don't know. And if you do know, you're telling me, and I say thank you.
You don't think an illegal invasion is a war crime?
Let's move on.
Why can't you just answer a straight question?
I can.
You can't. You're refusing to.
You can't recognise a straight answer.
Is it because you don't want to call Putin a war criminal?
I'm not sure if Putin is a war criminal.
Even though he perpetrated an illegal invasion of a European country?
Listen, as soon as I leave this meeting, and when I'm with somebody who understands international law, I'm going to ask them. But I'm not going to take it from you necessarily.
Do you think an illegal invasion, as you put it, might just be illegal and therefore a crime?
No, I think it probably is a war crime.
You can have illegal invasions that aren't crimes?
I don't think so, no. I think you're right about that.
So he's a war criminal?
Okay.
Is he?
Piers, I'm not going to...
You're worried about not getting any more Russia Today gigs if you say he's a war criminal?
I tell you what I am worried about, the fact that between us, the Western powers and Putin, we're still murdering Ukrainians when that war should have been stopped 2 years ago.
Well, the Western powers aren't murdering Ukrainians.
And
Russians are.
Excuse me.
Well, no Western forces are murdering Ukrainians.
They're encouraging
Russian forces.
They've encouraged Ukrainian people, much against their will, to lay down their lives in the quagmire that is the trench warfare in the Ukraine.
They're defending their country.
Because they want to weaken Russia. So they say. Anyway,
no,
this is
they're
only
defending
what
themselves
they say.
against an illegal invasion. Something you yourself called an illegal invasion.
All right. I've got to have a word with the people.
No, you're not. You're not. Honestly, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I don't want to have this conversation. Because it is ridiculous. Piers right about that. This is a ridiculous conversation to have in this forum. Many people should listen to John Mearsheimer. Don't listen to
I've interviewed John Mearsheimer twice.
Okay, and I saw it.
Yeah.
And he sort of made mincemeat of you. But
he gave his view, and I agree with some of it, and I disagree with some of the rest of it.
Okay.
In your case, you've stated things like, yes, it was an illegal invasion of Ukraine, but when I say so Putin's a war criminal, you won't say so. Which I think is sort of morally a bit cowardly, isn't it? He obviously is, if he's perpetrated an illegal invasion. If you illegally invade somewhere, you're a criminal, a war criminal, aren't you, Roger? Why are you reluctant to call him a war criminal? Is this boring you?
A bit, yeah.
Why? Because you don't like being challenged on your ideas?
Oh, my goodness, you'll try anything.
Your father fought against the Nazis.
Don't you talk about my father.
Well, he fought for freedom and democracy, didn't he? Against the Nazis.
You're on dangerous ground.
Why?
Oh. Don't go for it, Roger. Just ignore it.
Why is that dangerous ground? Isn't that what Ukrainians are doing against Russia? Fighting to safeguard their freedom and democracy. They are a sovereign, democratic European country, as we were when we fought the Nazis. What's the difference, morally, in principle?
No, they aren't, and it is different. And that's all I'm going to say.
Explain why.
No.
Why?
No, I'm not going to have this.
Seems to me, Roger, you like saying these things.
Well, I do like.
You don't like then explaining why you think.
Why do you think I've
if it doesn't suit you?
Why do you think I've come on your programme?
I don't really know.
You, the people of Holborn and St Pancras, have a chance to stand up on Thursday in the general election, okay, and to represent the rest of us, the people of England, the vast majority of whom want to stop the genocide of the Palestinian people.
Right.
You can make a great point in that debate by voting for Andrew Feinstein and making certain that Keir Starmer does not become the next Prime Minister.
Okay, well, Keir Starmer's going to win by a gigantic majority, I can tell you that. So I wish your candidates well that you're supporting, but there is zero doubt now from all the polls that Keir Starmer will not be the Prime Minister, and he will be in charge of a massive majority, I would think.